o'clock. We're recording this for the internet. Thank you all for coming. This is the What's Up with Torg, what's happening in the future and all that. I'll introduce myself. I'm Darrell Hayhurst. I'm the line developer for Torg Eternity. Have been working on it for about the last 3 years now. Line developer for just over 2. So it's my fault. Joining me is Mr. Greg Gordon. He was supposed to be here in person, but it turns out I am a much better writer than I am a travel coordinator. It's all my fault. Greg?
Hi, I'm Greg Gordon, once and future game designer, worked on the original Torg, getting it back into the game, and this one, most recently, When Cosms Collide, a super adventure coming out with Isle, and I'm doing more stuff in the future.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about where we are now and what's coming up next. Where we are now, we just finished the Isle Kickstarter about 3 days ago. And we had to hustle that one. We had to make sure to, because you never ever want a Kickstarter to overlap with Gen Con. It's bad for everybody, right? You'll not only lose backers, but our own attention's going to be obliterated. So we knew if we were going to go, we had to go now. And it had already been delayed a couple times. And then the other reason we didn't want to delay it till after is, after Gen Con, everybody's already spent all their money. Like, no one's going to back something during or after, like within 2 months of Gen Con. They need paychecks to recover and all that. So like, if we don't go now, we're not going until like September, October. And if we do that, then we only did 2 Kickstarters this year, and it's going to take forever to get through year 1. So we made sure to get that going. We got it done. It was spectacular. I mean, it came out very, very, very well. Better than we could have hoped for. I know that some people are looking at the numbers on that and being like, well, how can you say that when the Nile Empire did 200,000 and this one did like 174? Well, one, we didn't charge the shipping up front this time. And on those big boxes, that adds up to about $24,000-$30,000 total, which means if you include that, we actually beat the Nile Empire, which is insane. Because here's another thing, like industry-wise, you expect you expect to lose a certain percentage on everyone, and the fact that these are not losing much, or we're gaining more than we're losing, and the fact that we're up over half, like in the other rule of thumb is a supplement's going to make half or less of what the original does, and we're still up over that halfway point on these. That's incredible. Like, that's incredibly alive and lively thing for the game system. So we're super excited about that, numbers-wise. What I tell everybody that asks, what I'm even more excited about is people are playing it. Like, it shows up on events. It shows up off the books. You were just telling me there was an 8-player game in the basement, right?
No, nice.
Awesome, right? And that's what's super exciting, is that, we didn't want this to be a nostalgia game that you buy just because you remembered it and then you put on the shelf and forget about it. We wanted it to be this alive, living thing, and it's thrilling that people play it, and we'll keep trying to support that in every way we can. Next topic for current times, the Nile Empire, everything being delivered. North America, you should have it by now. Right, cool. Asia, you should actually have it by now. I got asked that, I couldn't answer it. The boxes, they're at their destination. Anything now is customs and the point-to-point deliveries should be. I'll update the Kickstarter where that question was asked the next time I have 2 minutes to myself, which will probably be 2 weeks from now. Yeah, Michael?
If there are any problems, like I'm missing a book, I'm missing some
poker chips or something like that. Or if the whole delivery is missing, please send an email to crowdfunding@ulysses-spiele.de.
Yep.
German it represents.
Yeah. So, yes, and what?
Or
Yes.
you can write it to the Ulysses North America account, and it will be forwarded to our crew in the jumbo.
Yeah. Yeah, and just in case people couldn't hear that, he was saying if there were any shipment problems, damaged goods, anything missing, Ulysses, crowdfunding at ulyssesspiele-betweenem.de, not .com.
It's the fastest way to get your stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That's current. Am I missing anything for current? I don't think so. Upcoming. So this is where it starts getting exciting for people. You know, I said last year we wanted to be going up to at least 3 cosms a year. There's always a possibility that something will go wrong, but it is, right? But the margin's pretty narrow of things that would stop us from kickstarting in October or November is our target for the cyber papacy. Yep, that means 3 a year. We did it. It's gonna happen. And then we should have 3 next year. They should be Tharkold in the probably February or March zone. Then Pan Pacifica in the summer zone, kind of like this one, right before Gen Con. Again, it was a pretty good slot. I mean, the numbers worked out pretty well for us. We'll try to hold to that. And then Orosh will be the 3rd one for the year, and that will finish year 1. And after that, we'll finally be into year 2 content and moving the Possibility Wars forward. And you guys will get to see all the effects of this cool data that we've been collecting from all these other books. And they're like, so, when's that going to matter? That's when that matters. That's when that all starts, really, coming into play. We intend to do the backer games on those first 2. They'll be for Gen Con next year. Then the one that'll be right before it, this year we were like, hey, let's do it this Gen Con. I don't think that was enough notice. So next time it will be the Gen Con after. Bright side is that also keeps us at 2 backer games at Gen Con each year. A Thursday game, a Friday game. And so everyone can plan that. If you're only going to be free on one of those days and only want to, be in the backer game on one of the 2, you can pick. I know Cyber Papacy is going to be is going to be the Thursday, and Tharkold's going to be the Friday game. And what we always try to do with those is we do a dilemma, generally a dilemma that the writers had in terms of, I'm not sure how I want to go with this in an upcoming source book or in year 2. And I am going to weave an adventure around resolving this issue, and these backers, whatever they do, that's the direction we'll go. And it gets pretty intense. Yeah. So, those of you that have been thinking about a backer game, recommended. There's a few other things coming up that I'll talk about in a minute. But one of the things I wanted to take a break from this and do is I wanted to bring up anyone who came here today who's worked on Torg Eternity. I mean, and if you worked on the original Torg, come up too, please, right? Because people do. Hey, I worked on that. We don't always know who's going to be able to make it to Gen Con, but anyone could. And I tried to throw a wide net, hey, if you did something for us, come on up. So who have we got out here that's done something? Okay, let's start with Steve.
Okay.
Come on up and take the seat of honor. And yeah, if you could, just tell us who you are, kind of what you've done, and you can also tell us other cool projects you're working on.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Kenson. I did some contributions to Creatures of Aurorsch and Creatures of Tarkold for the first edition of Torg. And I've done some stretch goal year one adventures for the current edition. I'm a big fan. My game group played a lot of Torg. Had dispatches in the Infiniverse newsletter. So I'm a big fan. It's really a thrill to be able to work on stuff for the new edition. Looking forward to, and I'll pretty much do year one adventures as long as Darrell will let me.
Turns out I ask him every time, and
Yeah.
he keeps saying yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm a staff designer with Green Renine Publishing. I do primarily a lot of my work there, but I also do freelance in the industry. I just did lead development on the new edition of Aberrant from Onyx Path. That just finished up on Kickstarter as well. And I run my own little imprint called Ad Infinitum Adventures, where I do superhero products for Icon's superpowered role-playing, which I designed. So,
Great.
Awesome.
yeah,
Nice.
so
Thanks.
great to be involved with Torg again.
Yeah,
So,
love having you. Who's next? Who else we got? Go ahead, Eric. Come on up.
Okay. Hello, I'm Eric Simon. Most of you who have been around for a while recognize me as I was the Kickstarter guy. I'm easy.
So it's your fault.
It was my fault. It is no longer my fault. So I am not responsible for Kickstarters anymore. So please stop emailing me. No. No, it's fine. I am happy to help take care of things when people are confused, and I get involved in the thread. I'm always fine with that. Of the things that I have done for Torg Eternity, most recently I was a stretch goal in the Isle Delphi missions. I have an adventure in that, and
People keep asking me for stats for flying monkeys.
hey, the flying monkeys came from the artist. They did not come from the writer. So ask the artist. But yeah. Also related to cyber papacy, which I may be part of the Delphi missions on that, because the first thing that I did for Torg Eternity, even before I took a trip across the northern states, taking videos of dinosaur statues, I have, I guess, what is technically the first published Torg Eternity adventure, if you consider podcasts to be publishing, because I ran Torg Eternity on the One Shot podcast, and it's very likely that that adventure is the one that I will put into the Delphi Mission Cyber Papacy book. So yeah, that's the stuff I've done so far. We'll see if I do more in the future. For myself, I am a small publisher. My company is Four in Hand Games, mostly known for Steamscapes, which is a Savage Worlds game, and Rockalypse, which is a Fate game, a couple other small projects here and there. My big work right now is almost entirely for the Sentinel Comics RPG. I am one of the writers on the Urban Settings book that will be coming out for that. So yeah, cool.
Awesome. Yeah, and I realized really who we should have started with is Greg right here. The most important person in the room who's not in the room.
Hey, Greg Gordon. Yeah, I was principal designer on the original Torg, worked on all the source books up through Tharkold, actually some of the Space Gods. And when Shane contacted me to do a little bit on Torg Eternity, I was like, yeah! Since then, I've been noodling around with Delphi missions. I think I had a Delphi mission every one so far, and then they tagged me to do a Cosmos Collide 112 pager for Isle, in which I've had some questions about Torg, so I decided to try to ask and answer them. So I introduced some stuff like possibility powers other than boost action and soak damage, so that there are other ways that things can be expressed. I tease another cosm that has a different way of spreading reality, because I am looking at other ways the possibility wars could end, rather than the way they did the first time. So this time is different.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Michael, could you come up? Yeah, you do stuff. So here's another kind of current event, right? We're currently under the Ulysses North America banner, but almost all of our operations are going up under the Ulysses International umbrella. So if we've been hanky about communication or we've been confused about some things, a lot of that is operationally where we're moving around. Michael here, I'll let him introduce himself.
Operational musical chair.
Right?
Hi, I'm Michael Mingers from Ulisses Germany, the parent company of Ulisses North America. I'm responsible for the German edition of Torg Eternity. I'm also kinda responsible for the Dragon Warriors from Isle, because I didn't write them, but when Shane visited us in Germany 5 years ago or so, when we was in the first phase of planning what this game should be about, Shane just came up to us and asked for the demo game, what do you want to play? And I was like, I like dwarves, I like power armor, can you include that? And he was, sure. So, that's when this started, and that's basically most of my feedback for all the versions in alpha and beta testing was like about Dragon Warriors. You should add that. I need to more punch here. This is a nonsensical weapon and such. So I really like power armor stuff. I'm also in charge at Ulysses for licensing games out. So I'm, if you want to do something like, hey, I have a great idea about custom key cards or keychains, or I want to make art based on Torg, you write me. Also, if you want to do a translated version of Torg and being in Dutch, French, or something, you also write to me and we will make something out. Currently in development are, besides the German edition of Torg Eternity that has been published, there's also a Japanese version coming up and a French version coming up for Torg Eternity. So it's still going strong internationally. Has somebody here seen the Japanese version of Torg for the last edition? You wouldn't recognize it. It's absolutely crazy. This is a crazy game, but the Japanese turn it up to 11.
When you say it's crazy, like new art?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
completely new art.
What's really interesting is it's a mixture of actually like line art from the original Torg with kind of anime-ized like strange other stuff, and they've got their own visual take on the Adinos, and yeah,
Oh yes.
it's really cool actually.
So like, I didn't know we had vampires in Torg, so we do now.
Actually,
The Japanese do.
yeah, actually there were. We just haven't gotten to Orochi yet.
Yeah, not like that.
Not like that. That's true. There's a little bit.
So also have a lot of other jobs at the German headquarters, but yeah, that should be it for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Anyone that I missed? John, come on up.
My name is John Watson, and a little bit of my background first. I kind of just got into it by just going up to somebody at a convention in Houston saying, hey, can I, maybe write some stuff, pitched them an idea. Then yeah, that was a little bit smaller, but then at this Gen Con, actually, a funny story, Lester Smith, whose shirt I'm wearing for his company, he's the guy who made Dragon Dice, if anybody remembers that, worked for TSR. He has Lester Smith Publishing now. He was doing a Kickstarter backer for this game, and one of the stretch goals was Baker Street Irregulars, Sherlock Holmes themed, and who's Sherlock Holmes' sidekick? Dr. John Watson. So he was doing it live, and I was there watching, hearing him speak with all his authors and everything. I said, God, these guys are great. I want to up it, so I upped my goal, and right at the last minute unlocked that. He was like, wait a minute, John Watson unlocked Baker Street Irregulars, So that got him to know me, so I met him at Gen Con during a game and pitched an idea to him. He's like, hey, why don't you write that for me? So that kind of officially really got my start setting that in for him there. I've done several more for him as well. Let's see, kind of similar with Darrell, met him, kind of known other people he knows, but met him here at Gen Con last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And I backed the Living Land archetype where you could make one. I made the Apex Predator, chatted with him about that, said, hey, I love Torg, was really fascinated with Tharcold, always loved that setting. Do you need any help with that? He said, send me some of your stuff, so. I did, and thankfully he took pity upon me. No, but said, yeah, let's work on this together. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm working with him taking the lead, writing some stuff. Actually ran a game on Thursday. Starcold book, yes. Actually, your shirt right there, I really like because it was themed after. I was like, how can I mix Doom into this? Because Starcold always kind of reminded me if there's a video game like it, it'd be Doom, and so it's kind of a Doom-themed adventure, so you guys might see that. What's that?
We'll get to BGF.
Yeah, there you go.
Like the pulverizer
yeah.
isn't.
yeah, exactly. So a lot of stuff that could easily translate well there, of course. Yeah, and that's about it. Really looking forward to doing what I can.
Awesome. Thanks, John. There's one other person I want to bring up here to introduce, but first we need to lay down the background of what he's doing. One of the things that we get asked very often, because the original Torg had a line of novels that went with it, and short fiction, which we've been adapting into the Cracking Tales and all that. So we would be asked, are there novels coming? Are there novels coming? I can now officially say, yes, there are novels coming. And I can also introduce who's doing the novels. Come on up.
You? All right.
Mr. Richard Baker. Ooh. Best seller.
Yes. Once, long time ago. Hi there, everybody. I'm Richard Baker. I've been around the game biz for quite a while. I actually started back with TSR all the way back in 1991. Went with them off to Wizards of the Coast when they were bought out and moved out to Seattle. And I'm the guy actually in this room who was probably played the least amount of Torg, which gave me a little anxiety.
You should try it. It's real good.
Because last year, Darrell and Tim Brown kind of came and looked me up and said, "Hey, we have an idea that we are really serious about trying to get a Torg Eternity novel trilogy in the works." Tim was familiar with my work from back in the day. I do wear two hats, I should say. In addition to working in game design, I also work as a writer of fiction, fantasy and sci-fi, of course. And Tim was kind of pushing me on it a little bit and said, "Hey, this is what we got." And I was like, "Man, Tim, I got to tell you, it's a big, crazy world, and I'm not necessarily an expert." And Tim was like, "No, this is what we got." And I looked it over, and we had some conversations, and before I knew it, I found myself agreeing. So it's like, all right, I better start making myself an authority, or at least what passes for an authority. I've been kind of reading up and studying up for months and months and months, and Darrell could tell you I've been pounding him with all kinds of just crazy questions.
Those are the best kind, though.
Yeah.
Because so Greg mentioned, one of the things that prompted When Cosms Collide was questions, right? We've got this very rich background, and then we go a little bit of a different way with something, and then that opens up this opportunity. Like, wait, why is that different? How does that work? And those are like the really fun questions to answer in the forms of source material, adventures, and so on.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been having a lot of fun trying to kind of wrap my head around this world, and one of the interesting things I think I kind of bring to it. I'm guessing you guys are all long time Torg fans. So I get to kind of come at it with, I think, a bit of some new eyes, right? I'm the guy you can represent for somebody who doesn't necessarily know everything that's happened in this particular game line and this narrative, since the 1990s. And that kind of gives me a bit of a journey of discovery, if you will. And a lot of the questions I'm asking Darrell and Tim as I'm communicating with them is stuff that they realize that maybe we haven't always told the new guy.
Fill the holes.
Yeah, about this stuff, right? We assume that everyone knows this because we've been invested in a long time. So it's been a lot of fun exploring it. These days, as far as what I do, I mentioned where I come from, out of TSR and Woods of the Coast for a long time. These days, in my two hats, my game designer hat, I am the publisher and president of a little outfit called Sasquatch Game Studio. We do the Alternity science fiction role-playing game, which is another 1990s game that we got a chance to breathe a little life in again a couple of years ago via Kickstarter. And we're down in booth 265, and if you happen to wander by and want to say hi and have a look, we'd love to see you and tell you about it. We also, with Sasquatch, do the Primeval Thule campaign setting, which is a fun play. Speaking of crazy game systems, for Primeval Thule, we wound up doing it for Pathfinder, 4th edition D&D, 13th Age, Savage Worlds, 5th edition D&D, And at that point, we're kind of drawing the line. We're looking at Pathfinder 2 now. We're going, and we're getting really good at doing this game in a lot of different editions. But man, another one?
And
really?
someone out there has them all.
What was that book again? I'm sorry.
Number 265. Yeah. So anyway, it's a good opportunity for us to we have a lot of fun with it. It's a great world. We call it Conan versus Cthulhu. It's a very savage, lost age of the earth kind of a thing, and naturally a good fit for like Savage Worlds. Particularly that's kind of exactly what Shane had in mind for that system. But my other hat that I wear is I do write novels. I have written, at last count, 12 novels for the Forgotten Realms in Wizard of the Coast. And the thing that kind of gives me a perspective on is I have a lot of experience in writing for tie-in fiction and coloring within the lines. So one of the things that I am trying to be extremely careful about as I'm working with this material is to make sure that I understand what's there, why it's there, and what spots need to be filled in and what spots kind of don't need to be filled in. That is super important to me. I always took painstaking care in my Forgotten Realms work to make sure that I was not breaking the world or ignoring something that had been done before me. And obviously I'm trying to treat Torg with the same thing. The other thing I'm doing these days, my kind of most current fiction, would be military-themed science fiction. I have a series with Tor books called Breaker of Empires. It's 1,000 years in the future. It's an age of kind of new colonial empires as the bigger, more powerful star nations are seizing up the most juiciest and most important planets, and a sort of age of, if you can imagine the age of great power conflict in the 1890s, early 1900s, the stuff leading up to World War I, but put that in 1,000 years in the future with rail guns and warp drives, and that's what my Sikander North books are all about. The next one of those is a book called Scornful Stars, which will be out in December. And the one that's currently available is Restless Lightning. So all good Kipling titles that I'm kind of borrowing from. But,
all right, thanks,
yeah.
Richard.
Hey, thank you.
When would we expect to see some Torg?
That's actually a question I'm going to leave.
Right, to be determined. It should be, we're aiming for around next year. That's what we're aiming for.
I almost answered that, by the way. I was about to say something like, no.
No.
Let the publisher answer.
No, like you say, and I'm a big believer, and let the person who's actually like writing it tell, like, it's going to be like 3 years, guys. Like, oh, okay. No.
I will tell you, I have, as of going to Gen Con, 83,000 words in on book one.
Great. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it's getting really close to having my first draft done.
Yeah, we're moving on it, everyone. So you'll see. And the other question that's going to come up around novels is: are they going to be part of the Kickstarters? Are they going to be something separate? That is to be determined at this time. If I knew, I'd tell you. Like we're not quite sure how that's going to end up. So more as it develops.
Did we lose Greg?
Oh shoot. No, we didn't. You still there, Greg?
In that picture for a bit.
I am.
Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Well, it's good that you're around for this part, because here was the other big announcement that we were going to do at this meeting. And that is, I introduced myself as the line developer for Torg Eternity. I am moving on from that post as of right now. Yo, thank you all for not cheering. Like, I legitimately feel, right? I like legitimately feel very good that there wasn't a, whew, thank goodness. I have another project. I can't talk about it yet. Hopefully I'll be up here talking about it next year that I'll be working on. I will also still be working on Torg, pretty much for the next year as well. Like, I'm working on the Tharcold book. I'm sure I'll be doing Delphi missions. There might be more, and even behind the scenes, just helping out here and there to keep things smooth with the new line developer for Torg.
Hi.
Right? Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Gordon is going to be the new,
Yeah, so it's been the full circle journey. I am really excited because when I wrote in the introduction about this being my favorite edition of Torg, I wasn't kidding. there's a lot of fun stuff in here, and I am ready to rip open the toolbox and go at it. So when Cosmos Collide was essentially also my job interview. I would kind of like to see Torg do some of this at some point in the future. So I'm really looking forward to wrapping, getting year one, finishing strong, and seeing where the possibility wars go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned to people even like last year and before that, I always felt like I was a temporary fill-in for this spot, like a steward for the line, hopefully to not drive it off a cliff and ruin it. And I was always keeping my eyes open for someone who would be that perfect fit, the right person for the job. And Greg and I, we did a convention together, ChupacabraCon, with Bill Slavicek. It was kind of like a big Torg reunion. It was really cool. And we're all running Torg and we're all having fun. And Greg mentioned, like, I kind of got the bug again. It kind of bit me. And I'm like, how much do you have the bug? Maybe we can talk. And yeah, graciously, he's like, yeah, I could see doing this. So I'm super excited about the future of Torg. Greg's got creative chops like, no one out there, especially where Torg is concerned. And pretty much, I couldn't pick better, to take this on. So I hope you guys are happy about that too. Oh yeah. Those are the announcements. How much time do we have for QA?
About 20 minutes.
Perfect. We're hitting right where we wanted to be. So if no one's got any questions, woohoo! It's Miller time.
No pressure. I have to get to a game. So.
Right on.
That's what he says. Game.
Yeah. So yeah, any questions about stuff coming up?
Well, I do have a question kind of to Greg. You kind of covered this a little bit, and maybe Darrell, you could, what your ideas were, but I know there were other causes, like Tharkol was one that was eventually adapted, Space Gods too. Greg, what you mentioned. Do either of you have any ideas for maybe doing like unknown cosms, releasing source books for that, where there's maybe more raiders or more helpful people that are coming to, aid core Earth?
Yes. So this is a complicated one, and so there are definitely going to be references in Richard's work. I believe there are definitely going to be references in Greg's work. We had references already in some of the source books with the Golden Kingdom, and the cautions before them, and there's probably more to come. Will we deep dive into any of those and what that means? Not until year 2, because we wanted year 1 to be all about filling in the details of our big cosms. After that's filled on and we're moving forward, that's when you'll see us start like exploring new avenues and seeing where that goes. See where that takes us. Do you add?
Yes, well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you have anything to add to that, Greg?
Yeah, I was going to say that while the Infiniverse newsletter doesn't exist, we are still working hard at getting feedback from users and stuff. So for like when Cosms Collide, I consider that a referendum on sort of the new things that could happen in the Possibility War. So I toss out a mini cosm called Mesopotamia, which is basically Bronze Age meets Flash Gordon with a new way of spreading reality, and then get questions and feedback on that to see if this is the direction of the style of reality generation we want to continue in the future. So I think my plan is going forward as line developers to have small pieces of new things first, and what generates the right, the interesting questions or the interesting feedback. All right, we'll do a whole lot more of that.
Which is in a lot of ways how the original Tharkold came about. It was a throwaway reference in the core book, with no intent behind it, and then people latched onto it and they're like, "Oh, I guess we better do something with these crazy techno demons. That sounds pretty cool." Awesome question. Any others?
Can you talk a little bit about the way that you're getting this feedback? It sounds like I've run a bunch of day one stuff for my group. It's been a huge hit, I haven't read the other adventures. Are we doing the thing where at the end of the adventure there's the There's the questionnaire. I had no idea. I didn't know.
It is so, and this is something we're going to try to get better about. There is a survey on the website,
Okay.
and as we do more with the website, we'll make it easier to find. Like we send usually links out on the Kickstarter when we do an update. I'll be like, hey, and by the way, the survey for this last group of books is up now. Go check it out. We usually put those surveys up a month or two after the printed version, just to give people time to play them, to give it time to settle. I haven't gotten feedback saying, no, we run them like all really fast, and then I forget the results. Do it earlier. If I did, I'd put them up earlier.
You're the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. So those surveys are up. We run them off of SurveyMonkey just because it's cheap and easy, and that's one of the advantages that we have over the original Infiniverse is they didn't have these mechanisms.
This is way better.
Well, the original was groundbreaking, but didn't have the technology that we have,
exactly.
right? So we can do these things very easily, like have the surveys out and ask this, and then there's some spoilers in the questions that we ask in terms of like, wait, why was that important? Yeah. But we're asking those questions. They are going thing. That is not the only feedback mechanism. It is one of them.
Backer games.
Backer games are another one. Like we try to put a lot of we put extra weight on that. Like that's one of the things that you get as part of that experience is you get to come in and you get some slightly more immediate feedback on the world, sometimes connected to some very major events, And I also leave it to the backers whether they choose to share those results with the world outside or not. So there's that. There's also this is a less formal mechanism right now. The forums, we've got that section like post your glorious stories. That matters. Like we're reading that, and those will matter for year 2. Like some of them might be referenced, but overall, what we're paying attention to is where things are happening, and that's going to dramatically affect the maps in year 2, and what cosms shrink, what cosms grow, and all of that. Ask about exact mechanisms for how this works. And we'll put up this is a dark shield in front of it. It's like we don't really want people to know exactly how it works, just that there are these inputs and that we're listening to what you guys are doing, and it matters for the war. Anything to add, Greg?
Yep. I just. Where are we on? Where are we on the spoiler?
As far as I'm concerned, spoil anything you want. You're the line developer.
Okay. So, the way we have been teasing how the war is going to progress and how the High Lords are going to start throwing down in year 2, that's one of the things I am grabbing most particularly is which players are having which things happen to which cosms. I think there's going to be the throwdown between the Gauntman and his nearest rival. Have we named? Is that known yet, Darrell?
There's a couple. So if my answer might not be the same as yours.
But so. Like one of the things I enjoyed was how we had played with sort of the world laws mechanics in Torg, and the fact that Dr. Mobius turns out to have a fairly ingenious plan by casting himself as the hero, the Gauntman, so that his world laws will give him an edge whenever he fights the Gauntman, is a thing we have been playing with and watching how the battles are going in the Nile Empire to decide, okay, how should that effect manifest itself? So the stuff that is happening now with the feedback that the Nile thing is out is going to directly impact that major throwdown that's going to happen in year 2 between the Gauntman and Mobius. So it's stuff like that where we're not getting absolutely precise feedback, but it's like, lots of people have been playing with the Rocket Rangers doing blah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to happen here, and so it really informs the flavor of the strategy of the bad guys.
Yep. It's not a vote, but it does matter.
Would it be fair to say that going into year 2, the biggest impediment to the progress of the existing High Lords is the other High Lords, or the existing resistance on Gold?
So I'll defer that until we've got all of the data in. But right now, my impression from the data is Core Earth is fighting back hard. The High Lords are losing zones in year 2. Now, they're not they're not going to take that lying down. One of Greg's lines when we talk about it is what interests us so much is the back and forth. Like what happens? How does this group respond? And Core Earth, they make some gains in year 1. Now, what do the High Lords do about it? Greg, you got any extra for that?
No, but that's I look at the details of how people are sort of describing what is happening, and then I imagine, okay, they say X is happening, so why? How does Core Earth respond to some of these threats? So, like, I spent a little bit of time of, okay, if you only can see a kilometer into Isle, how can I coordinate an airstrike? So I worked out that way. How they do that, they modify the Mage Light spell to do ultraviolet. That's spottable by a satellite. The satellite can call in the airstrike. You only have to have agents on the ground a kilometer away. You paint that with a laser and blow the crap out of stuff. Core Earth is focusing on places. So I say, okay, then I will work on the mechanism to make what the players say is happening happen within the core rules of the game. So I'm using their strategy, then I'll break it down into, well, tactically, this must be what's happening.
Awesome. In the back, there was a question.
Yeah, so as you kind of are plotting in your head as you go along, you may not even know the answer to this. How many years do you see the possibility wars playing out in game?
So the question is, how many years do we envision the possibility wars happen? So
could you repeat that, Darrell? I got one word out of that.
Okay. Yeah, the question was, how many years do we envision the possibility wars going on? And then the answer is not infinity. So I'll give my answer with the deferral that Greg's answer could be different, and that can change things, right? So in my mind, we built it where the length of the war could depend on how well things went as a game line. Yeah, so we can tune it. And it was basically a number between 3 years and 5 years. And it could land anywhere in there. And to me, the really interesting thing is what happens once the war is over. Like, what's next? So yeah, there's an end to the war, absolutely. It kind of depends on how you guys do. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I definitely see it as year 2 decides which factions are really going to win, largely. Year 3 is setting up what's going to happen after the war is over. And then we start dealing with what happens after the war is over. So I think we're going to see fairly rapid advancement on the plot after year 1. Because all the pieces are in place. The players have been giving us a lot of feedback on all the stuff. And I don't think I think we'll have enough answers to our sort of thematic questions after we've had essentially 3 years of real-time player feedback to go, okay, we now can hit the accelerator,
right,
and really start going.
Yep, because our intent is, tell a story, a cracking tale, so to speak, that's going to get people excited. We don't want to make you wait 10 years for the answer.
Yeah.
For example. Awesome. Any other questions out there? Cool. Well, I'll be here after the show. Greg, unfortunately, will be in Portland, Oregon, so if you're there, say hi. Next year, it will be him sitting in this chair, and I'll be out with you guys, asking questions and as support. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for all the support that you've given to Torg over all this time. It's been incredible. Like literally, it's surpassed every expectation, every measurement that we could have hoped for. It's just completely obliterated it. So thank you all. Cool.